Senator Whitmore.
Thank you, Clare. Minister, your department highlighted and confirmed to me this week that there have been a number of confirmed cases, additional cases of rabbit haemorrhagic disease identified in hares in Wexford and Kildare and in rabbits in Clare and Cork. And in light of that, Minister, I'm asking, will you suspend the issue of the hare coursing licences as a precautionary issue until there's further information on the disease?
Thanks, Deputy Minister.
I want to thank Deputy Whitmore for bringing this important issue forward. The control of live hare coursing, including the operation of individual coursing meetings and managing the use of hares for that activity, is carried out under the Greyhound Industry Act of 1958, which is the responsibility of my colleague, the Minister for Agriculture, Food and Marine. My responsibility relates to the conservation status of the hare. While the regulation of hare coursing is not under my statutory control, licences are required by the Irish Hare Coursing Club under the terms of the Wildlife Acts on behalf of their affiliated clubs to facilitate the netting and tagging of hares for closed park meetings. The annual licence to capture and tag hares for the 2019-2020 coursing season was issued by my department on the 9th of August last year. The licences granted by my department in such instances include a range of conditions in relation to coursing hares, which were designated to provide as much protection as possible to the conservation status of the hare. The RHD2 virus, which affects both rabbits and hares, was discovered in a number of rabbits and hares around the country during last summer. The scientific advice available to my department at the time and following the issuing of the annual licences indicated that the virus was highly contagious and easily spread, and that catching of hares in nets in their transportation boxes and in keeping in confined areas like coursing hare parks could all be considered to increase the risk of the disease spread. In these circumstances, given my department's responsibility in relation to the conservation status of the Irish hare, it was decided to suspend the licences issued to the Irish Hare Coursing Club on the 9th of August last year until a clearer understanding of the context, the spread and implications of RHD2 was envisioned. A revised, more restrictive licence was subsequently issued to the Irish Coursing Club in October 2019, effective at the end of February this year, following discussions between the MTWS of my department and the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine and the Irish Coursing Club on the impact of the virus. The restrictions included conditions of the capturing of hares, and coursing activity was prohibited in areas within a 25-kilometre radius of where wild rabbits or hares were tested positive for the virus. New zones were added on an ongoing basis as further positive tests arose, and in these new zones the capturing of hares was to cease immediately, and coursing would only be possible where already captured hares and where the hares were certified in writing by a veterinary surgeon as being healthy, and such hares would only be released back into the wild on foot of certification. This did impact on a significant number of coursing events.
Thank you, Minister. I don't think you quite answered the question, though. Will you suspend licences going forward? We've seen that there's another couple of instances. I'm actually not sure how many hares were found in Wexford and Kildare, but there have been confirmed incidences. It would appear from the response from your department that the research work that was promised to happen on this hasn't actually happened. Your department has said that they are working with colleagues and that they will sample rabbits from hunting bags at different locations. And I think in the absence of that scientific data, I think we need to use a precautionary approach in addressing this issue. The hare is an iconic endemic species in Ireland. In the UK, where there has been an instance of this disease over the past few years, in some areas up to 70% of the population was wiped out. We cannot afford to allow that to happen to our hare populations. And I think it's important that we restrict and suspend the licences at this point in time until we have sufficient research and data available to us to really specify how widespread it is in our population across the country, not just where we find, are told of dead hares that are found, but we actually proactively go out and sample. And I think until that happens, that we should suspend licences. And I would ask the Minister again to suspend licences.
Minister.
In order to increase our knowledge of the prevalence of RHD2 virus across the country, the NPWS are working with colleagues in the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine to develop a national survey of RHD2 in rabbits. This will involve sampling rabbits from hunting bags in different locations across the country. The vast majority of rabbits sampled will be those ordinarily taken from licensed hunters in the course of their normal leisure shooting. A small number of additional animals may be taken for the purpose of the survey to fill geographical gaps. Animals will be tested for RHD2 virus to demonstrate the presence of the disease and RHD2 antibodies to confirm the previous exposure. I would like to agree with Deputy Whitmore. We have to do this based on science and based on the evidence before us. And I share the concerns. I share the concerns around hare coursing. Ultimately, this may be a decision that could fall to a senior minister, but I will give my guarantee that our department and will inform the final decision on whether the licensing of netting of hares will take place this year.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Whitmore.
Thank you, Minister. I think it's disappointing that you won't say yes or no. This is an area that's within your remit. I would like to see a ban on hare coursing. That is not within your remit, but this is something that is within your remit. I think from a conservation perspective, we either believe in the precautionary approach and we are there to protect and conserve our species. And in order to do that, we have to have the scientific data to do it. We don't have it in this instance, so I would really, really ask the Minister to look further, perhaps talk to the senior minister, but I would ask that you suspend the licences until we have that data, because untold damage could be happening at the moment. It is a highly contagious disease, and allowing the netting and capture of these hares could be actually spreading it throughout a population, and we really can't afford to let that happen. So I would ask that you suspend the licensing, Minister.
Minister.
Thanks, Deputy Whitmore. And again, I share your concern. There's no commitment in the programme for government to ban hare coursing. I certainly, we would have liked to secure that, but it's not there. We are still collating information and data. I think the decision is due in the next while. I can't give a commitment here today on whether that will be a positive or negative decision, but I do think that we still need to gather all of the information and data and the veterinary advice in relation to this, and I will give my commitment that whatever decision is made based on the best available data to us, and that's the only response I can give to you today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Minister.